you doing today? Right here on the West Coast, it's 3:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday, and I want to talk to you today about your soul. Now, we all have a soul, right? If you want to argue the existence of your soul, then this is not the place for you, because this is a place where we trust innately that there is something inside of us, right? Something inside of us that is speaking to us, right? That is guiding us. And I want to talk today about how can you tune into that wisdom that your body is telling you, right? And some of the science that we know and some of the psychology behind it. And also how to live a life of ease, right? We can't necessarily control all of the things around us, but we do get to control how we lead, right? Where we live from, right? And so many of the women that I work with identify as having, challenges with doubting themselves, right? And so much of the time when we're talking about doubting ourselves, right, that has to do with a decision, right? Is it this or is it this, right? Do I make this choice or do I make this choice? I don't know. I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to think about it all the time. I'm going to overanalyze. I'm going to poll all my friends. And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted and I don't even know what decision to make. Now, if that sounds like you can hashtag like overthinker in the comments and let me know that that resonates. It absolutely resonates for me as the way that I used to live my life. And from so many of the stories of these women that I hear where they don't feel like they can trust themselves. They don't feel like they can trust that they'll make the right decision. And a lot of that's societal, and a lot of that has to do with our histories, our backstories, a lot of people coming out of trauma. Like all of that can be true, and we can circumvent it. We can circumvent it by simply learning to tune into ourselves. So I want to ask you today to think about a time in your life when you had a big choice, right? A time when you didn't know what to do. Right? And I've got a lot of those stories from my own life, and I'm going to share some of them today. And one of the stories I'm going to share is the path that I have gone on professionally to leave the corporate world, to become a therapist, and then to finally transition into being a coach, which is my truest calling, at least for now. So when I was working at Amazon, I was making a lot of money. I was doing the corporate grind, working a lot of hours. I had a lot of like prestige. Everyone around thought, "Oh, what a respectable job," right? But I hated it, right? And I knew that I hated it because my body told me that I hated it. When I would come into my job, I would feel tight. I would feel oppressed, right? I would feel like I was like claustrophobic in my skin, right? It was like weighing down on me, the weight of this world, right? And this job that I was supposed to do and all these things, and I just hated them. And I knew I wanted something else, but I didn't know what it was. And there was a woman who was working there as a janitor, and I would always talk to her, and I loved talking to her. And one day in the bathroom, it dawned on me, like, I want to talk to women for my life. Like, I want to just hear women's stories, and I want to help them navigate the cycles of their life. And at the time, the path that I saw toward doing that was therapy. And so I decided I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go back to school. And when I thought about quitting and I thought about going back to school, I would feel expansive. I would feel uplifted, even, right? Absolutely, there was some of that fear, right? That's still there of like, am I good enough? Was everyone gonna think of me? Like all of these things, right? That are just natural. But my body, wisdom said, this feels lighter. This feels more open. This feels more expansive. And I went for it. I quit my job. I went all in for myself. I went to school. When I was in school, and I've never talked about this before, but I know that this is something that I need to share. Um, when I was a little kid, I was really good in school, and I talked in class and performed in class, but there was a certain point where that shifted, and I decided that it was safer for me to stay quiet in class. And that continued for me into grad school. And so in grad school, I would be sitting in these classes where my peers were sharing, and there were times when I felt that calling in my heart to say something. I wanted to speak up. It almost like rose like a bubble in me, like, here it is coming. You know, we're going to talk about chakras, right? Like coming to my throat chakra, coming to be expressed. But the fear and the what ifs would kind of clamp it down. And occasionally I'd speak, but for the most part, I would push it down, right? And it felt heavy and it felt icky, and I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to distract myself away from it. I wanted to forget that because it wasn't in alignment with me. Here I was going to school to be a therapist. I wanted to share myself. There came a point in school when I needed a letter of recommendation to get into my, practicum, my internship. And I asked one of the professors that was one of the professors of most of my classes. And he said, Lauren, I feel like I don't even know you. And it took my breath away, right? Like it was like a dagger. Like that's like the worst, right? To not be seen, to not be known by someone who is like supposed to know me, right? And of course he wrote the letter, thankfully he wrote the letter, and I had a great internship experience. However, that point was like this turning point for me of like, I am holding in all of this stuff, and it is preventing the world from knowing me. It's preventing people around me from getting to be with me, getting to experience me, getting to see me, and me getting to learn that I am loved or I'm lovable. If we don't give other people the chance to know us, to see us, we can never prove to ourselves that we are lovable. And I see this so much, we're our bodies, our science, our brains, like we're wired to be experimenters, to be scientists. And so we know now, like the neurons that fire together wire together. So these neural pathways churn and they learn their routes, and really quickly we can have these established ways of interacting where we want so badly to be loved, to be accepted, to be seen, to know that we can step into our power. But we don't believe it until it's proven, and we're not allowing our system a chance to prove it because we are clamping down on our truth, right? On the things that we're called to say and share and do and be. So now I'm going to fast forward a little bit, so I was a therapist for a while, loved that, right? Until life shifted, and I realized that model just wasn't hitting it for me anymore. And, my own life circumstances, I had a second baby. That was really difficult. We moved across state lines to get more support from my parents. And in that juncture, I started looking into coaching. Serendipitously hired my first coach, and that was now a year ago. And this past year of my transformation and my growth has been so unparalleled with the decade plus of therapy and other, methodologies that I worked with, that now that's my message, right, to bring to the world, right? That here are the ways that you can really learn to step into this like full embrace, and soul indulgence is my brand, right? It's about like letting it out, right? And so often we think that what's in here, what we're being called to do, is bad or scary. We think that staying small is what's going to keep us safe, but that's not true. I can't even tell you the number of times I've talked to a client who knew her truth deep down a long time ago, but she didn't follow it because she didn't feel like it was okay to do for whatever reason. And then now here she is, X number of years later, with that same truth, except she's older and there's kids, and it's just way more complicated. But she still knows she has to follow her truth. And why does she know that? Because of her body, right? Our bodies are so complex and amazing. We've realized over the past, several years, how many neurons are in our gut, right? They're in our intestines. And so this idea of like, listen to your gut, trust your gut, like it's true. Like there's neurons in the gut that are telling us what we need to do if we only listen. And so today I want to offer you the single most effective tool to do this. And it's listen, it's feel, it's just be curious and be present. So if you have a decision that you have to make in your life, you think of your two options, right? Sometimes it'll be really clear. One option feels heavy and hard and tight and restrictive and just like a shutting down of your system. And the other option feels expansive and open and light and like you can breathe into it, right? So sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes it isn't though. Sometimes there's so many layers of like shoulds and performance, and I say it here because it's all that like societal stuff that we've learned that's like in our prefrontal cortex that's telling us, you know, the firing signals for our brain, right? And the goal is to pause this and listen here. So Martha Beck, who's a famous, you know, life coach, talks about, you know, to be, you know, one option, right, is to feel absolutely free, right? And the other option is to feel like chained, right? And so if one option feels like that weight pulling you down, that's not the thing. If the other option feels light and open and like you're free, that's the thing. So with that, right, sometimes I talk to women who both options feel tight, right? So staying feels tight and leaving feels tight. And sometimes that's because it is, right? It's not gonna be a walk in the park, right? To leave, you know, whatever it is that isn't serving you, right? But you can still use this tool, even if there's a lot of similarity in both of those, simply by paying attention to the weight of it, right? Sometimes it will feel still tight, but it's like a rising, a lighterness. Sometimes it will feel tight, but it's a sinking, heaviness. So guess which one is the one your body, your soul is calling you to? It's the lighter one. And we can talk even science about that, right? Because we're talking about, like, now we know all this stuff about energy and that we really are all made of energy and there's energetic vibrations and we can actually raise our vibrations, right? And when I first heard this stuff, I was like, why is raising my vibration so good, right? Like, why wouldn't lowering my vibration be better? But there's science of that. When things are at a higher vibration, like imagining like molecules in a container, they're like bouncing all over. It's like higher energy. It needs more space. And by having more space, it's going to take up more volume. And then it's going to be a lighter weight, you know, for volume. I don't know if you hear my baby chirping in that something's calling on his soul, right? So, or, you know, if something is denser, it's heavier, it's a lower vibration, everything is slower and sluggish. And so in that container, it doesn't need as much space. It can kind of close into itself. So I ask you today, if you're watching this, you can shoot it in the comments or you can send me a message if you don't want to throw it out there publicly. But what are the decisions that are on your heart? What are the things that are pulling you? So there's one that I've been working through these past couple months, and it's actually about getting rid of my therapy license, letting it go, deciding that's not the model for me anymore. And every time that I think about doing that, it's just like, oh, the shackles are off, right? I feel free, right? And then I talk to people who are like, oh, are you sure? You don't want to keep it, you know, like a safety mechanism in case things don't turn out over there. And I instantly, sometimes I'll think like, well, I should, right? I should do that. That's a good idea. It's sound logic, right? That's what society says. As soon as I do that, though, I instantly feel like it closing in. And I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to live my life that way. And I don't want you to either. I want you to get to feel free and open and get to feel like the safety that you were looking for is in listening to your soul and how easy it gets to be, right? Once you just know, well, this is my internal mechanism that I listen to. Like if it tells you something, it's just what it's telling you. It's like there's no apologies. It's just what it is. You can spend a lifetime ignoring it, but it's not going to change. So why not just listen? Right? Let it be what it is. It's telling you, it's guiding you. You don't have to spend all this time thinking. You don't have to spend all this energy and all this exertion trying to shape something into something else. You just get to be. When you start making choices from that place, You are subliminally sending messages to your system that you are worthy, that you are lovable, that you are exactly as you're meant to be. Just listen.